Hello, everybody, and welcome to another enticing edition of Let's Talk. I am Laughingboy LP, and I'm back again with Sab Irene. Hello.
Hello.
There's like a little bit of a delay between Discord, and so I'm just kind of like, say hello, and then I'm almost just kind of like, hello?
Throwing it into the void almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm used to that. So last time we were discussing a lot of the technical stuff about YouTube in general, and we're going to kind of go more into that, but on the opposite side of things with Twitch streaming. We'll talk about collaborations, and I think that'll about do it for this episode. So first, about Twitch. So can you tell me a little bit about what your Twitch channel is about and how that differs from what you do with YouTube?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest difference between my Twitch channel and my YouTube channel is that my Twitch channel is very memey, while like YouTube, I'm very serious. There's a lot of jokes on my Twitch, but basically what I do there is sometimes I'll do piano request streams where people decide that they're going to be very absurd and torture me, and they're like, let's send you this. It's just like a good thing for me to kind of keep up my musicianship on an instrument that isn't my primary. We play video games, mostly games that I've played through before, just so that a game isn't ruined for me by Twitch, because people backseat game, they spoil things, and I don't want a game ruined for me.
No, that's understandable.
Yeah, but my favorite thing that I do on my Twitch channel actually is we do chatting streams every Sunday where, I have a cup of tea and we just, put on some chill music and we just talk about our week and life. Those are my favorites because I love to talk and I love getting to really learn about my community. And I feel like Twitch is the best place to do that. If you were to compare at least to YouTube, I think Twitch is better suited for community engagement.
Yeah, I mean, being able to talk back to your viewers in real time, getting that feedback in real time. I mean, it is doable with Twitch or with YouTube streaming now, but I feel like you kind of just view YouTube as this is a repository for
exactly
episodes and my content, rather than Twitch being like a way to kind of give, almost like a way to give back, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I'm giving my time to you right now.
Right.
Kind of thing. So when did you start streaming, and what drew you to that platform? What drew you to streaming?
I think one of the first times I ever tried to stream was 2014 or 2015. I tried doing some random things Pokemon streams that only lasted once or twice. I had done jigsaw puzzle streams. I was just like, hey, would anyone want to watch me do a jigsaw puzzle? And I did a jigsaw puzzle at my desk in 2 hours. And then I remember playing Undertale the winter, a few months after it came out. And it was my first time playing it. But I didn't start streaming steadily until January of 2019. I think because I'd been involved in Zeldathon and I really enjoyed watching Twitch streams a lot and getting to engage with my friends and engage with the community because there was so much crossover. To me, I was like, I kind of want to use this as a way to share my music on another platform. It was just piano streams at first, but it kind of evolved into, doing piano, doing video games, doing chatting, just kind of a little bit of everything.
Did you find the transition from YouTube to Twitch difficult?
A little bit. I think on the technology front, much more difficult, because for me YouTube was just okay, you point the microphone where you need it to be and then the camera, so to me that was really straightforward. It's you push a button and you record, you push a button, you film a video. So Twitch was super complicated because it started getting into routing sound, which on Macs is a huge pain because you can't see everything up front and you have to download these programs. I used Soundflower for the longest time, and then when Catalina updated, I couldn't physically use it anymore. So I actually use Loopback now, which is a savior because it's very visual where you can see how the sound is being routed, which is super helpful for a dummy like me who doesn't really understand audio routing. So I would say like just trying to like manage that, and then you have to like see, is the stream still running, how is my Wi-Fi looking, and then you have notifications, alerts, a chat. So like I feel like there's a lot more that you have to pay attention to on the technological front with Twitch. So like that was super difficult at first compared to YouTube, that it was like you just hit a button and you're good.
God, I think I do remember doing some streams by around 2013, 2014, and the amount of work that goes into it, personally speaking, it felt like double the amount of work that you would have to do for YouTube, because everything's real time. There's so many more moving pieces. And actually, I use iShow Capture for Mac now.
Okay.
So yeah, it just creates like a multi-out device that allows me to capture desktop audio. But there are so many things that you now have to think about. And yeah, with notifications, like with Streamlabs, I feel like that got more and more complex.
Yes.
Between like 2014 and today. I still find it much more difficult to stream than it is to just create YouTube content. But I'm also an introvert. So,
right.
Because I feel like you have to be on, right? Like you just have to be in a certain mindset in order for Twitch to really work for you during that frame of time.
Compared to YouTube is more like you go at your own pace and you put it out when you're ready, versus like if you start a Twitch stream, it's like, bam, you have to be ready at that moment. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's much more difficult for you to pretend, knowing that other people could be watching at that point in time, rather than doing a video or recording and then kind of just piecing things together on your own time.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about how you route your audio, but what other programs do you use, or what other programs do you use to stream? How does that differ from how you record videos? Like, what's the difference there?
So I use OBS whenever I'm doing like a piano stream, or like streaming a game from Steam or like an emulator. I use Game Capture HD with like my Elgato card whenever I do things on the Switch. But then I use Loopback to kind of like organize everything to make sure the sound is rooted, whatever pronunciation is seen fit. But then I still use my DAW Reaper to kind of like run things through. So like when I'm doing a piano stream, I'm like using like my piano virtual instrument and like make sure that Reaper is just routed into the sound so that they can hear the piano that I'm hearing, and I don't have to use like my crappy keyboard sound. So it's just kind of like adding to what I already do. Like I use the same microphone, same interfaces. It's just adding those little layers to capture like the desktop audio, and using my laptop webcam instead of like my nice camera.
Well, yeah, I mean, trying to set that up is also
I don't have a fancy webcam.
fun.
I thought about getting one, and then everyone decided that for their Zoom meetings, they needed to have the highest quality webcam for no reason. So webcam prices went through the roof. So I was like,
God, don't get me started.
I was like, I'll wait on it, because sometimes the internal Mac webcam freezes a lot, and then like you can't turn it back on, and that's resulted in me having to like end a live stream and then restart it, which is super frustrating.
Yeah, I haven't had too many problems with the Facecam webcam. And it's fairly decent for a laptop webcam.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Again, I think we've talked about like being on, being present, and being available, but I guess, do you find Twitch to be more demanding than YouTube in terms of like scheduling, conversing with fans, that kind of thing?
I think it's, for me, specifically at like this moment in time, it's a little hard to compare, because I think like there are issues that are unique to Twitch versus YouTube. So like for Twitch, sometimes I do find it demanding. But the one thing that I kind of talk about a lot on my streams is the thing about like assumptions and expectations. So, where sometimes people are like a little spammy and they're just like, hey. I'm like, I don't owe you anything. I'm like, I don't have to, respond to everything that you say, and you don't have to do anything for me, just to like respect the fact that, be respectful of others. Don't be a jerk. So sometimes it could be a bit draining when there's like a few people who are kind of coming in and, not being respectful to people. And sometimes, you don't have that energy in you to do like a full 2-hour stream and just be like on. And I noticed that, like, the streams where I'm not as lively, you know, I used to think it wasn't super apparent, but it really is, you know. People can feel that energy, so I think, like, really making sure that you're in the right mindset to stream. Like, having a schedule is good, but if you don't feel it in that moment, don't try to push yourself to do a stream, because it's a lot of work to, you know, get set up. Like, and then once you hit the live button, everything seems to go wrong, even though you tested it 20 seconds before. And then you have no account for what's going to happen, who's going to come into your stream that day, what technology issues are you going to have. You know, and obviously that's a very negative way of looking at it, but they're just things that you have to expect a little bit, where it's like, well, this could happen, you know, and if it does, you've dealt with it before, you know, do your best to deal with it. But
it's a tough expectation to have, because you don't want to go into something going, oh God, something could go wrong, because
right.
now you're kind of taking yourself out of it. And it's something I struggle with a lot, whether that's starting on time or like, you kind of expect that others have expectations of you when you do a stream, whether, again, like starting on time or being in like a particular mood, or being constantly hyped, or doing something that they want you to do, playing a game they want you to play. And it's a really toxic wasteland in order to be in when you start a stream. How do you kind of mitigate that? I know that's not one of the questions that I put on here, but what are some things that help you through those moments?
I guess that one of the biggest things that, as you were talking about that came to my mind, was something I learned in my student teaching, where there were some classes that I kind of like dreaded teaching, which is really unfortunate that I felt that way, but it's just because I couldn't figure out what I needed to do to like motivate that class. And I feel like there are times where I hit that with Twitch streams, and kind of going to the point where you're like, oh, well, this could go wrong, is that, you know, if you go digging for something long enough, you'll find it. And, you know, and that can work where, you know, if you go looking for positivity long enough, you'll find it. But, you know, think of the inverse. You know, if you go looking for negativity, that's all you're going to find. So I think, like, it's about having that realization, like, you know, yeah, could something go wrong? Probably. But, you know, I try to just go in and be like, I'm here to have fun. Like, at the end of the day, that's why I Twitch stream, is like, you know, I really just like to have fun with my community. I get to be, you know, who I am. Like, you know, I still have to be on, but, you know, I can be really dopey like that. I can't necessarily bring that same energy always to my YouTube videos.
Right. So
I like that I get to be a little bit more silly and have memes, because, you know, Twitch streams only last for so long. You can only go back to them for a little bit. But yeah, I just like getting to learn more about my community, because I make music, you know, for other people and for myself. So I like getting to hear how my music is a part of other people's lives.
I think that's really important to remind yourself of, is that you are like with others in terms of doing this from a more positive perspective. What's helped me a lot has been streaming with friends, specifically having like co-coms. And I think, again, like, I guess personally speaking, I don't want to burden other people with being like, hey, please be with me in my streams. But at the same time, it's a lot easier to kind of be in that positive mood, knowing that you're with others and that they kind of share the same likes and opinions as you, and just kind of being in that energy is really helpful to mitigate, I think, a lot of the negativity that can come from that.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about money. I know when it comes to Twitch, there's quite a bit of money involved, whether it's in bits or donations or tips, or just in general, just using the platform. What would you say is like the biggest misconception about streaming in terms of that, like, return on investment?
I would say that, you know, if you go in with the expectation, like, I'm going to make so much money, you're not going to make so much money. You know, because I've noticed that there are times where I kind of like poke at people, not like, oh my God, I want money, but like I'll have like new alerts. I'm like, hey, and I try to make them small amounts, like, you know, $5 or less, you know, just so that they're funny little things that like catch me by surprise, and are like specific to what I do. But, you know, I try not to push it, because like people often are like, well, screw you. But I would say that even if, like, you know, I'm always grateful for like when anyone even, donates $1, like, cheers 100 bits, gifts 1 sub. Like, to me, it doesn't matter the numerical amount. It's just about like building that community. I just don't like the misconception. It's like, oh yeah, because I gave you money, that means like we're friends now, or like you have to be nice to me. It's like, no. I'm like, you don't owe me money. You don't owe me anything. I was like, just as I don't owe you anything. Like, I can't respond to every message. Doesn't matter how many people are here, if it's 5, if it's 500. So I would say that sometimes people think that money equals like parasocial relationships. Which is always a hard thing because, I'm always really grateful, and I often like tear up on stream when anyone even, does like the littlest thing, because, no one owes that to me, and I'm just incredibly grateful that someone's like, hey, I think that, you're great, so here, have 100 bits. It makes me really smile, but when people start thinking that because they gave me money that I owe them things, I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can leave.
So really it's not a transaction, or it's not payment for favors of friendship, but It's really just the fact that like you are doing something out of the kindness of your heart, or for tax incentives. But like their expectation should really be that you are doing something to support something that you like, and not trying to use this as a method for obtaining special privileges. And I think it is kind of a scary notion. There are some, I think one of the things I've realized about Twitch as a platform is that sometimes the conversations are one-sided, and not as a negative, but you build a relationship with somebody who tells you about themselves and shares their passions and things with viewers, and the viewers kind of learn everything there is to know about that person without having the opposite end of that conversation. Like, I guess with Twitch and with YouTube, even though we are like speaking to viewers and speaking to fans, the conversations are one-sided, and so they learn so much about you, but you know nothing about them.
Right.
And that's not a fault of the content creator themselves, but it does create this notion of, I know we are best friends now. And it's like, no, I just met you yesterday, and I don't remember who you are from MagFest. Like, please remind me what your name
that happens
is.
quite a lot. People like, you remember me? And like, often I just say, yeah, because I don't like to hurt people's feelings. So I'll be like, oh yeah, and I try to be a little convincing, not like that. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, like it's so nice to see you again. Like, I keep it super general. I just kind of because again, like I'm not out to hurt anyone. I'm not out to hurt anyone's feelings. I felt so bad about that, where like at MagFest, so I was like, hey dude, it's so nice to finally meet you. And you're like, we met at MomoCon. I'm like, oh yeah, and I like totally spaced, and I felt so bad. I was like, oh my god, I'm a piece of garbage. I'm like, I don't remember him. But we didn't have that issue come PAX East. I was like, yes, friend.
You, hi, hello.
No, but I've had that happen, and I try to be, because I don't want to hurt the person, be like, oh, I don't remember it. But some people, like, depending on how you kind of approach it, where I'm like, I met so many people, I'm like, I don't exactly remember. I'm like, I'm sure we did talk though. But like, regardless, I'm happy that I get to see you now, kind of putting it in perspective.
Well, it's always nice to, it's not, there is no negativity really. Like it's simply like, I feel like as a teacher, you would know this. And as a previous substitute teacher, I've had to teach like 200 kids in one day. And then you have to come back to the same school and they're like, how do you not remember my name? I'm like, you are one of 200 people I just met today.
My students were always baffled. They're like, how did you remember my name? I'm like, because I just try to remember your name so that you feel like you're a person. But it's hard, like, to learn 400 kids' names. Like, I had to do that twice in one school because I worked with some kids and then the semester switched. So, like, I had to learn all new names. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Very few times I ever mixed up kids' names. But I felt like so embarrassed for the times that I did. And I'd like talk to them. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, that I screwed up your name. And they're like, it's okay. I'm like, no, it's not.
Dude, it's fine.
Yeah, they're just like, it's okay, miss. And I'm like, no. Like, it is not okay.
I think looking back at it, maybe I was a little bit like disconcerting, but I always try to have a little bit of fun with it and just kind of like, hey, if I say your name wrong, whoops. Like,
Yeah.
I just met you today, like, and I will not see you tomorrow, most likely. So
Right.
it is what it is.
Yeah, it's different when you get handed a seating chart, I think. Going wildly off topic, but just trying to remember people and names, it's a lot. And kind of going back to, like, you know, if you form a connection with someone, you're more likely to kind of remember that. But, you know,
Yeah.
And that's, like you said, it's kind of a one-sided thing with, like, the Twitch streams where they're getting to know a lot about you, and sometimes viewers might share about them, but it's a little different when you're just reading, you know, like, text versus, like, hearing the tone and, like, seeing someone as they're telling a story. It's a very different thing.
Well, and I feel, again, it's like, you know, I know... I don't know. I'm just trying to make up a random, like, Twitch username, but it's like, I know Laughingboy, but I don't know who that person is.
Right. Yeah.
And
I
so
gotcha.
it's a wildly different thing when you finally get to put the face to the name.
Yes, that's very, even when it's someone that you know and that you've worked with, like, still, like, meeting them in person for the first time is a very different experience.
And then finally, going back to money.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've had to put more work into streaming to receive that return on investment versus creating videos for YouTube? Like, basically, is it harder to make money off of Twitch than it is on YouTube?
I think it's like there's an ebb and flow to it kind of thing, where there are just times where, you know, I stream and I'm not really doing anything and people are like, here, take all this money, and, like, when one person does it, it's kind of like the snowball effect. I'm like, what did I do? Like, you know, there are times where I used to stream, like, just piano, and people would, like, very generously drop, like, 10,000 bits or something, and I'm like, do you want to hear a song? And they're just like, no. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, because that was very nice of you. So it's kind of weird, because I feel like the more that I, like, try to incentivize people, and again, it's not like, give me money, it's just kind of like having, like, stupid goals or reminding people of, like, a stupid alert that we have. People are more resistant to the idea, versus when I'm, like, literally just sitting minding my own business, people are like, this is the time to just donate 20 gift subs. I'm like, what? So it's kind of weird, because, like, YouTube, I feel, is a lot more intensive for me, just because it's a longer, drawn out process compared to streaming. It's just kind of like, okay, like, you know, I just kind of wake up and I'm like, yeah, I said I was going to do music today. We'll see if I actually feel like streaming that when it comes time to 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little weird, because I feel like Twitch is a little bit more spontaneous for me, even though I have a schedule. It's more spur of the moment, versus YouTube. It's like my videos take, like, a week to 2 weeks to make, so it's a lot more drawn out, and it has several stages compared to, like, okay, I have my scenes all set up, the game's good to go, didn't even do a test, but we're ready, and then I just hit the button and go.
So that's all I have for twitching, for streaming.
For streaming.
For doing them strams, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about collaborations. So kind of going back into, like, the typical content creator thing. And I do know, especially when it comes to, I don't know how best to put it, but, like, music YouTube, there are a lot of collaborations. And so I feel like with this, I think you have a lot of experience with this so far.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this section, because, whoo boy, it is hard for me to talk to people. So, talking about collaborations, what was your very first collaboration experience like? And did you kind of take to that fairly easily, or was this something that you had to kind of get better at over time working with others?
So my first collaboration story is kind of funny. So it was back in, like, 2014, I think. 2013 or 2014. I don't remember anything anymore. But it was
fine. March was like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
so.
I know. So I remember talking to Insane in the Rain Music, and, like, we had started, like, just chatting. I really liked his work, and we started like talking. And I remember being like, hey, like, dude, I'd totally love to do a collab with you. Like, you're a huge inspiration for me. You know I don't have a lot of saxophone videos up, but I'd love to do that. And he's like, well, yeah, like, when I need to see some samples of your work. He was like very businessy. And he's just like, I don't know you. And then within like 2 weeks of just us getting to like talk more and like know each other, he's just like, hey, it'd be cool if we did a collab of this song. I'm like, may I direct your attention to when you said this like 2 weeks ago that the following that you didn't want to work with me until you did the so
per our last email.
As you find in this email or whatever that meme is now.
Yeah.
And so we did a cover of City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2, like a really slow version of it.
Ooh.
And it was, I think collaboration is definitely something that I've gotten better with over time, because, you know, not every collab looks the same. It's not always a 50-50 collaboration. Sometimes it's 60-40, 70-30, even 80-20. It really depends on the situation, the person, how you work together, how much time you are allotting for the collaboration. And there are just some people that I work better with than others. Like, some people I really butt heads with. Like, you know, I love them to death, but like, there's some people I really butt heads with when I try to collaborate. So it's like kind of picking and choosing. But I definitely have learned to, like, I used to be very passive, and like, even if I didn't like something, I was like, no, it's okay. So I've been better about being more vocal about things that, you know, if I really need someone to touch something up again, you know, I try to allot that amount of time from the beginning with the collaboration so things don't get pushed back too much. Okay. Because I don't like to pressure people. I like to give at least a month for all collaborators. Like, I'll send them everything at least a month in advance. Being like, hey, if you could get stuff to me, and I like often will do it like, hey, I'm giving this to you now, can you, like, you know, and I'll ask them like 2 weeks before the deadline, like, you know, before I like have to put out the video or something, so that if something comes up, you know, they have that buffer week. And that also, you know, I'm like, all right, if they said that they're kind of busy, it allows me to work on something else to put up so that they're not feeling pressured to get something done if stuff just happens to come up. So, yeah, those are a few different things I've tried to like consider when I'm doing collaborations, to make them a little bit easier for everyone involved.
It's definitely an interesting thing for me, for someone who I just don't have timelines.
Right.
Fun story, and I've kind of mentioned this before offhanded on like Twitter and such places. But the actual interview that I did with Massey took place over 3 years. Really? Yes. I want to say the very first recording, 2016, like May-ish. The final recording was around probably like October 2018. Oh my God. And really that just had to do with like things just didn't work out. Like, sometimes I was, I moved twice in that time frame. I think, she just had things going on, and really just had to do with like just trying to find the time to, sit down and do the recording. So it's nobody's fault, and that's why I'm usually okay with telling this story. I just think it's really funny. But no, I guess I have to think about a little bit more in terms of, if I had to have a timeline, what would that look like, and how would I be able to work with that with others? That's a very difficult thing. Not just asking somebody to do it, but to ask them to do it within a time frame. Yeah. I feel like
it's so hard because you don't want to like push the person, but you're also like, I kind of need to get this done.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of been, and even without a timeline on myself, it's like I've had something sitting here and I would like to release it, but I'm still waiting on something. And how do you communicate with that person without coming off as pushy or demanding, but still trying to firmly, ask for that return, Yeah. That deliverable, as they would say in the business world. How has working with different collaborators, how's that been beneficial to you? And do you find working with others on different videos to be mutually beneficial?
I would say that kind of working with others has taught me a lot about my job. How to really write for different arrangements, because, I have a few that I play, but everyone's abilities are different. So I try to write something that is suitable for the specific collaborator. But something that I think that they're also going to have fun with and pushes them, because it's no fun if it's just like a safe part. Because that's like, how are you pushing the boundaries? Because I try to improve with each cover that I do and do something that, growing on a skill. So what's nice is that often my collaborations, at least in the past few years, have been always with a specific person in mind. So the example I think of a lot is I did a cover of a Hornets theme from Hollow Knight, and that was done with 3 friends of mine from Berkeley that I had played with like a little bit. Like I've known Carlos forever, the guitarist, like I've known since our first year of college, but we had never worked together really, like maybe once or twice. So I was like, I would love to do like kind of like a prog fusion thing with him playing guitar and like my friend Emily playing the violin, because she's like the craziest violinist, like she's stupid good. So like I really wrote it for those specific people in mind. And I feel like that really comes across because I had worked with them. I know what they do. So I feel like that's been beneficial for me to like push what I can write for certain instruments and just pushing the genres that I'm comfortable with, and really thinking about, okay, if I want to do like a metal cover, like where am I drawing inspiration from? Like, am I going to listen to some Dream Theater? Am I going to think like Red Hot Chili Peppers, even though they're not metal, but that's like what I listen to and in my realm, and I can kind of amp that up a little bit,
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely been helpful to just kind of push what I can do in the arranging department, but also just like how to convey the information to people, how much time do I give them depending on what I know about their work ethic and just like their availability at that moment. There's a lot of factors I think that go into it. And do you find working? Yeah, I think that it's definitely mutually beneficial, because, most of the people I went to music school with, like, they want to be performers or session musicians. So, it was helpful for them to get experience with things. We were each able to give feedback on each other's work. And then with people, in the YouTube community, kind of the same thing where, they're people that this is what they want to do, or it's something that's just really fun for them and they like to put the time in. So just kind of being able to give feedback to each other and explore something that we might not have done if it was just ourselves doing that work. I think that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, and the main reason why I tend to ask, like, is it mutually beneficial is because when it comes to collaborations, there are 2 ways to go about it. Do you want to be included on somebody else's thing, or do you want them to be included on your thing?
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to that asking for somebody's time. And
right.
Again, that's like one of the most expensive things that you can provide anybody. And so if it's not going to be mutually beneficial, or if people do not find it mutually beneficial, then, what do you do in that case? And in what ways are they mutually beneficial? And like you pointed out, like some people just want to be able to do these things, or they find it gives them good experience for something. So even though they may not make any kind of monetary investment, they are still getting the investment of experience.
Right.
So that's why I feel like it's an important thing to think about when you look into collaborations and who you want to collaborate with.
One thing I want to tack on to that is making sure I think it holds true for any field, but making sure that what you are having that person do highlights what they do. It's one thing to just ask someone to play a part on something, but, I feel like a collaboration should really showcase this other person, especially for someone like me who's a multi-instrumentalist. If I can play these parts, why would I ask other people sometimes? So I want to make sure that the part that I'm writing really shows what they can do, because, I'm working with this person to show other people, look how amazing they are. Look what we do when we work together. So... Mm-hmm. I think that that's a really important thing, just finding a way to complement what that person brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, it has to make sense, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I've had to learn over 5 years is that I get very excited about certain things that I would like to do with others. Mm-hmm. But then you realize either through asking and getting declined or by really thinking about it that it doesn't necessarily make sense for them to do that.
Right.
Or again, like you said, it doesn't really highlight something that really works for them. So I think that that's, again, another important thing to think about. Just really asking yourself that question of, does this not just make sense for me, but does it make sense for them?
Yeah, exactly.
What other pieces of advice do you think would be most helpful in terms of collaborating and then as well as communicating with others, especially things that you've learned over the years doing this?
I'd say transparency is probably the number one thing. I did a collaboration with my good friend VGR, almost a year and a half ago at this point. We did Lonely Rolling Star from Katamari Damacy. And
great song.
It is a great song. One thing that we really struggled with was the mix because, he's an electronic guy and he's amazing at what he does. But I was adding saxophones as well as my vocals because I wanted it to, because he was like, yeah, saxophones, but I had a lot of layers and it was sounding really muddy. And there were points where it was either the saxophones were too loud and it was taking away what he did, or his stuff was too loud and it was taking away what I did. And it was really stressful for us to really try and find that middle ground. But ultimately we delivered something that we're happy with. But what really helped is that, he was very transparent with me. And in turn, he's like, this has been very stressful for me. And I'm like, I'm very sorry because, that's not what I intended. We were able to be very upfront with one another, so that it wasn't weighing on us. And I try to think about that when I do collaborations, just being very transparent with whoever I'm working with, because I don't honest communication. If you don't have it, chances are something's going to give way and the project might falter a bit. So,
do you think that's easier for someone that you have had a relationship with a long time, or does that come across as easily for you for somebody that you've just met?
I think it depends because as soon as you said that, I was like, well, I know some people that I've known for a long time I clash a lot with when we collaborate. So sometimes I find it harder to be a little bit more upfront just because there's struggle already. Versus VGR I had met in January of 2019 at MagFest. We didn't know each other at all. And then a few weeks later, because he goes to school in Boston as well. I was just like, hey, dude, you want to do a collab? We were out to dinner. He's like, yeah. I was like, cool. I'm like, you want to put out a video in April of Lonely Rolling Star? He's like, sounds good. So, we just kind of clicked very well. So even though we didn't know each other that well, we felt comfortable being honest with each other and transparent. But then there are some times where I struggle with people I've known forever to have that same level of transparency, and maybe that's from I don't want to disappoint or I don't want to make them feel as though they just wasted their time kind of thing, kind of going back to how time is the most valuable thing that you can offer. So I think it's super tricky, and depending on the relationship you have with the person, that will allow that honest communication to come easier or a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and I think, as soon as you mentioned it, it was something that I picked up on because, the first time we technically worked together was the Zelda Universe panel this year.
Right.
And I think almost right off the bat, you were very open and transparent with me about certain things.
Yes, I was.
And, we can parking lot that part of the conversation, but I think I really respected that because for me, again, this is a very difficult thing for me to do. Like, I have to take like deep breaths before I even start the call.
Right.
So for someone to kind of, come up to me and say like, hey, I just want to, can we have an aside chat and then talk about certain things that are either, okay or not okay. Honestly, I think I respect that more than to not get that feedback, because I don't know what I am doing right or wrong.
Right.
How I interpret that is something that I'm also working on. So
yeah, I think that's definitely the hardest part.
Yeah. But being able to, I think it is kind of, I don't know if it's a lost art or if we are naturally inclined to not want to be upfront or we don't want to appear combative or hard to work with. And,
yeah, that's definitely a struggle for me, because I can come across that way because I'm like very sarcastic and very just kind of blunt and in your face, very pointed with how I deliver things a lot. So, that's a huge fear of mine often, is that sometimes I come across as too direct, but, at the end of the day, I'd rather be honest than kind of like dance around something and be like, or lie, because honestly, lying doesn't help anyone. That's just like my personal belief. I'm like, who are you helping by lying? Whether it be yourself or others, what good is it going to do you in the end? And the answer is really not anything. So,
well, and you have to do it for yourself too. If you are feeling that you're not being treated as in a fair way, or if you are trying to get something done in a way that you are happy with, then you have to have those conversations without the fear of how that person's going to interpret them. And, they could interpret it positively, or they could, come back and be defensive and combative with you. But as long as you are getting what you need, then I think it's really important to, be firm with those kinds of things, and to, not try to be combative. Right. You can always control how you sound, but you can't control how that person's going to interpret it.
Exactly. And there's also, a difference, and it's very subjective. It depends on the person, where like there's a difference between being honest and being a butthole. Like, absolutely. It's really all in the delivery, and like, how well do you know this person to convey what you need to convey? I have one friend where like we absolutely have no filter with one another, and she's someone that she can be like, Sab, you're being a complete idiot, and like I won't be offended at all. I'm just like, yeah, you're 100% right. They are someone that I value their honesty and their opinion, and I don't really get offended by anything that they say, just because like we have that like level of trust and bond where like we can literally say anything to each other. We could talk about anything. So, and they don't get offended when I'm just like, you're being stupid, and they're like, yeah, you're right. We kind of help balance each other out when we're having a tough time.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is understanding the relationship that you have with that person already and how that plays into your communication.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, dealing with people is hard.
It's so hard.
Why can't I just be alone in a cave? So going back to being with people, what does your dream collaboration look like?
I would say that, like, because I was thinking about this before, I think that there's, like, 2 levels to it for me. Like, community-wise, I would love to do a collab with everyone in TRG, whether it was, like, a collective thing or, like, in different groups I kind of did stuff. Like, I would love to have John play saxophone on a cover. I would push that till the day I die.
That's right. He's a
Yes, he
daddy.
is. But then if I were to think like more professional and like in terms of like industry, I would love to do a collaboration with Yasunori Mitsuda. He is the composer of Chrono Trigger. He did some of the music for the Xeno series. He has such a distinct sound. I know a lot of composers do, but like, like when I'm playing a game and there's a bunch of composers, like I know what is Yasunori Mitsuda's. Just because I'm like, that's my boy. He's got a very distinct sound. So to be able to work with him on something, I don't care what it is, like if it's related to past musics or if he's just like, hey, I'd love to have you play saxophone on this. I think I'd like melt and like fall through the floor or something. just because he's such an inspiration with like he's provided some music for some of like my favorite games in my life. So to be able to work with someone who's helped create so many strong emotions and connections, that would be like a dream come true.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Like, there are just certain musicians where they just have a sound, and like it as soon as you hear it, and you're like, wait, is that like Yoko Shimomura?
Yeah.
And then you look at him, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
What are you doing in Kingdom Hearts?
Either him, like, well, like I'd love to also Hitomi Sato. Hitomi Sato did a lot of the music for Pokemon Diamond Pearl Platinum, and that's one of my favorite games and favorite soundtracks. So to be able to work with them would be amazing, because both people are Japanese, so I'd get to use like my minimal Japanese and be like "Skoshi nihongo o hanashimasu," just be like I speak a little.
Yeah.
But people again who have just provided music for some of like my favorite games and just like big moments in my life would be amazing.
So we've talked about dream collaborations, but who are some people that you've worked with that you believe deserve a little bit more love out there?
I remember we talked about this a little bit in like an earlier episode.
Like inspirations? Yeah,
and like I think you asked like what are some channels that for people to check out or something.
Yeah.
But I think like what comes to my mind are like a lot of my female friends right off the bat, because I feel like often, when people think video games, they think guys or people who identify as male. So I immediately think of like a lot of my like close female friends that I've worked with over the years who like definitely deserve more love for like what they do. So my friends like Tara C Music, my friend Medlix, her name's Brooke, she plays the oboe. I do like quartet work with her. My friend Sydney, who runs Smart Game Piano, she does like these piano tutorials for people who are in video game and anime music. I only met her recently, but she's like, we grew very close. And then my friend Sungha, unfortunately she doesn't do much like work on YouTube, but she does like sound design work for like a company in like on the West Coast or something. But I've worked with her. Like those are just like people that come to my mind that I could definitely use more love, because they're really, really amazing at what they do. Yeah, the list could go on and on and on, obviously, but I'll cap it there for the time being.
That's the last question, so you can go ahead.
I can always provide you a list or something later, because it would go on for a while. But yeah, I love the community that I get to be a part of. Like it's so awesome that it's such a positive, encouraging corner of the internet.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. There are a lot of there is so much content on the internet, and I think that there are a lot of very talented people that kind of get lost in the shuffle because of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's really important to every now and then just try to find a way to
find them and bring them to light.
Exactly. Or just remind people, like,
hey, they exist.
That they're still around.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for this third episode of a 4-episode series. This used to be like 12 pages long. Now it's only like 7. Haha.
That's pretty nice.
So on the next episode, we will be doing taking some time to reflect. We'll be talking about how things were, favorite. How they are now. Yeah, it's the juicy bits. Saved it for last. And that'll be it.
Yay!
Yeah. That's it. We'll see you then. Yeah. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
See you someday. 2023. I'm going to listen back to this and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, Corona.
Oh my God.
It's not just a mountain or a beer.